Now guys, it's time to add the background, and then with the background you want to adjust the keying and also add certain effects on the subject so it blends with the background. I've chosen something quite difficult here. If you take this image here, you notice it's a very beautiful image, right? But it has been color graded and it has certain grains and stories like this. And we wanted to blend the subject, which has red, blue, and stories, on this background. Okay, so how do we do that? Let's take the background and drop it under the video. Cool. Now you notice the contrast is huge. The first thing you want to do is to make sure that you do corrections on the matte itself. So now if you position it over here, okay, something like this, you will notice that you have this matte that you need to correct a bit. If I zoom in now, I can see more faults over here. Yep, okay, now the real work will start. Cool, let's go back to 100% and go to the effect. And the first thing I want to do is to switch back to intermediate result. Well, I already have half of the problem resolved, but I still have some kind of white around his head. Maybe we can reduce the rollback a bit, and we can also shrink it a bit, the matte, just a bit. Okay, it's working. Let's go see the green. Well, the green has disappeared, no problem. We're cool. Okay, guys, so actually I'm trying to correct it now according to the background. If I had a green background or, some kind of background that will blend, I will not do these corrections. Cool. So I'm happy with that, but the guy is very much not in the scene. So we need to apply some color correction here. Okay, how do you do that? The best way to start applying effects after the key light is to pre-compose and take the key light to the pre-composition. I will right click and say pre-compose, and I select move all attributes into the new comp. We don't want to open the new comp, and here you are. So now I have a pre-comp here, and the FX control is clean, but most importantly, I know that the key light will not affect other effects, and other effects will not affect the key light in case I put them up or down. Cool. Let's play with the color correction. I will go to Lumetric color. You already studied this, I hope so. You didn't skip the lecture or the section. Click and drop it on the subject itself. You could decide, okay, you can do basic color correction, whatever you like. Okay, here is not working at all. I will undo or reset. Then what I would like to do is to go directly to creative and choose a nice look here. I will go down and I want to choose the black ones, or the Noir or the Noir Nouvelle SL. That will be very nice. Let's drop it. And okay, it has blended too much. I don't know what. Let's reduce the intensity. That's one, not too much. Okay, something like this. Looks cool. Fine. And maybe you could fade the film or sharpen it. In our case here, you notice this is cool. But if I sharpen it, even the guy will look better. Okay, here you are. Yep, very much better. It's blending even more. Now, this is done. But, guys, there are so many options that you can play with the colors here to make the subject, blend at 100%. Another effect you can add here is the grain effect. I will try it. Here you want to add some grains, okay, on the video itself. Adding grains here is useful because it will blend more with the background. So the view mode is final output. So I will look at it. Okay, it's too much. We need to reduce the intensity of the grains, right? Something like this. Okay, this is trial and error now. In fact, I'm going to put 0.5, just type it in. Okay, that's better. See the grain influence. You need really to adjust this one, and let's reduce the size of the grains. Here you are. The grain is very easy to use, and you just drop it and decide on the intensity of the grains and the size itself. Cool. So this guy looks good now. Let's add some shadow, and that is very important. You notice there are quite some shadow, and this guy looks like he's coming out. I will go search for shadows within the effects. That's the best. Okay, shadow. You have the drop shadow and the radial shadow. Well, you can use either. I will take the drop shadow just to try. And it is sped up effect here. It's going to go very speedy, and I'll drop it on the key light. Let's go over here. Fine. Now, notice the shadow is like, wow, where is it? First of all, let's reduce the opacity. Okay, we don't want that bright. And then we want to adjust the angle. Okay, let's hide the distance as much as possible. It's over here and we play. Okay, more of the distance. Let's come over here. Something like this. Okay, and then we need really to soften it a lot. Putting the shadow not to, make the guy look like he's standing behind the desk or something. Just to make sure that there is a certain light coming from the window and there is another shadow from here. That's one way to put a shadow using the drop shadow. If you don't want the drop shadow, very fine. I recommend also the radial shadow. Radial shadow has something of, interesting is that you can play with the light and you don't have to waste your time with the angle and so on. Let's reduce the opacity. Okay, that's better. Let's make it very soft, as much as you want. Okay, and then let's play with the projection distance. Let's bring it over here. And then let's move now the point. Where is it coming, the light? Let's go up. Yep, something like this will work. Well, that is a bit more interesting, but also you notice it's a bit big. You could scale it. The way to do that is just to duplicate the layer. This is one. Now you have 2 layers over here, and in the top layer you will say, here you are, shadow only. Okay, so this one you don't want any shadow. I will remove the shadow from here, and in the top layer you can now decide, okay, I want to scale the shadow. Notice how the shadow is being scaled. You can put it over here. Okay, so there are very many ways to add the shadow. The shadow will give a certain dimension to your blending and the way it's working with the background. Now, guys, this is what I did here, just, talking to you. It's up to you now to come back and say, okay, how do you make this one much better and how do you blend it even more? It's very important that when you do the blending, you are a bit artistic, try to look at the background and so on. I have to admit, this is a very difficult background. I would like to show you something, that is obvious. Thank you very much for listening, and we move on to the next lecture.